Today at Speedy's Garage, we're going to hard mount and hardwire a radar detector because this suction cup mount and this wire running across the dash is no bueno. In order to mount the radar detector, I chose a blend mount. I've used these in previous vehicles and I've found them to be very well made, and it keeps the radar detector from bouncing around or doing anything weird when you're driving down the street. They're a little bit more expensive than some of the cheaper ones, but they're 100 times better than suction cup mount solutions. The mirror design of the Camaro required them to come out with a new version, so the one that I had in the 370Z isn't going to be able to fit, or the one that I have in the Challenger. You can see it has a small arm that mounts between the box and the short stalk on the Camaro's mirror, and then it'll put the radar detector just slightly below the mirror, making it look like it's part of the car, which is exactly what I want. To get this done, you're obviously going to need a blend mount. It comes with nice instructions. I'm going to make my own power cable. I'm just going to use an old phone cord. If you want to spend $30 on one of theirs, they offer these for purchase. I'm going to use some heat shrink, a couple of pins that I picked up from Radio Shack. They're D-sub connectors, and they're just a small pin, and I'll solder that on to the wires before I insert them into the plug that we're going to get for power. To create that plug, I'm going to need a soldering iron, and I really like these. You've probably seen some of my other videos where I mention this. The gas or propane powered one is great. You don't have to deal with cords and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of cable wrap to make it look nice. Obviously a wire stripper. I've got this out, maybe some electrical tape, not sure. Zip ties. I might have to open up the pins on the connector a little bit where I get power, so I've got that tool for that. Multimeter. You're going to need one of these to determine where you're going to draw power from. You need 12 volts to power the radar detector. A lot of new cars with all the computer equipment and everything else in them have 5 volt or some other odd voltage that the radar detector isn't expecting. So we'll have to use this to locate 12 volts. And then I've got some trim tools that I'm going to use to remove trim pieces to get to those plugs. And the clips that hold this panel in place go around the edges in 4 or 5 places. So I just use the trim tool to go up above it and just wiggle it. And it takes a little bit of leverage to make them let go, but they will if you just work with it. You just have to go around the perimeter till you hear them pop loose. And now I'm going to remove that panel and see if I can't find 12 volts in it. So here you can see I've released the panel from the roof. And you can see there's a clip here, a clip here, a clip on the other side. And so just work around, and you want to focus on those areas. That's where you can get it to let go. And then it's just got tabs in the back that kind of hold it to the headliner on this end. So there aren't any clips in the back side. They're all on the sides in this front one. And now you've got some plugs you need to unplug, and that will come out. Okay, these plugs are a little tricky. They've each got a recessed lock. Hope you can see that. So I used a small flat blade screwdriver to push on it outside of the lock, and then they would ease out. So these two had that. This one had it on the right hand side. This is the door opener. Let's see, this middle one had it on the right hand side right next to the clip. And then this is the one we're actually trying to get to, and it's got a retainer in it. So I used a small flat blade screwdriver to come underneath that retainer and lift it up. And then you can just push this white tab down and unplug that. Okay, I used my electronic pick that I showed you earlier and pried out this little blue plastic retainer here. The very far right pin connection is empty, and it made it easy to slide this in and just pop the edge out, and that made room for me to insert my little pins here. And now I didn't just guess and get it right the first time. The purple with white stripe wire and the black wire are the two we're looking for. The purple with white stripe, that's your 12 volt, and the black is your ground. I actually did some internet research to save myself some time, and I figured someone else had tried to do this, and sure enough, I found some forum posts on Camaro 6 where it talked about which ones would give you 12 volts. I expected to find it in the mirror, and I actually started working on the back of the mirror there in this box, and I checked every single pin and didn't find a single one. That's how I did it in my other cars. So then I went to the internet, and that's when I found out about this plug, and that's the one that'll get it done. And to cross check, I set my multimeter up on DC, And then with the black on the ground and the red on the 12 volts, you'll see we don't get anything when the car is powered off. That's what you want. I then keyed the ignition on but didn't start the car, and I checked again and we're still not getting any voltage. So now I'm going to start the car and make sure we get 12 volts. And there's our voltage. It's actually 13.5, but that's what you're going to get from an ignition switch voltage source. So now we can just hook up our wire and be good to go. Now we want to put our pins on the wires. And it doesn't really matter what color they are. These happen to be green and red. One will be power, one will be ground. The important thing is what position they're in the plug. You want the two middle ones. So if there's 4 pins in there, you want pins 2 and 3. And to solder, you always want to heat the wire, not the solder, and then let the solder absorb into it. Oops. And this is not hard to do, but because these are so small, it's just tedious. Once you get it started, you can just crimp the pin on the wire. It took me a try or two, but that's what you should end up with. And now we're just going to crimp it and put our heat shrink on. And I like to use the smallest heat shrink possible so that it fits nice and snug. And so if I've got a questionable connection where I think the shrink wrap might not fit, I'll put it on some small needle nose pliers and stretch it out. When you heat it up, it'll shrink back down, but I put a nice little bell on one end so that I can work with it. And there's what it looks like when it's finished. I made mine 14 inches long, and I basically did a test fit to make sure it was long enough. And the sheathing on it, as you can see, makes it look nice and professional. I did heat shrink both ends, so there is the connector end. So we get the focus, there we go. And then there's the pin end. And so now we just need to determine which one of these wires will be power and which one will be ground, and connect it up. And the easiest way to determine which one is power and which one is ground is to use your original power cord, plug it into the car, and then use a multimeter and test the pins. You know one's going to be power and one's going to be ground. This particular one has 4. From left to right, if you think of them as 1, 2, 3, and 4, just check them with your multimeter until you find power and ground. Now I've done this before, so I know for this particular model, pin 2 is ground and pin 3 is power. So now I've connected the wire, and it's almost like GM expected us to do this, because around the front there's actually a hole in the headliner for the wire to pass through. So now let's test it before we put everything back together. And there we have success. And I did go ahead and reroute the wire to follow the factory harness and put 1 zip tie on it to hold it to the factory harness just for good measure. Installation is just the reverse of removal. You want to make sure you connect up all your wiring harnesses. There's the 2 LED lights in the front, your center connection, the one we worked with, as well as the garage door openers in the back. And with everything connected up, just gently pop the unit back in place. And then just follow the blend mount instructions to get it attached to your rear view mirror. As you can see, the space is pretty tight there, so it's a little bit tedious getting to all the screws and everything to get it level and set the way I wanted it, but it's not too big a deal. And it looks great on the car. And this is how it looks from the driver's seat. It works great. It's flush with the mirror and looks like a factory installed option. If you'd like to see more how-tos, please visit my website, www.speedysgarage.net, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/speedysgarage.